Hey, good afternoon. We do not have a forum right now, so we will be having an informational meeting. And should we start out?
Yeah, sure. I think we can run through the agenda and
Okay.
not vote on anything.
But we can't even call it to order, can we?
I'm sorry.
Can we call it to order?
I'm not sure what Robert's rules would say on that. You can say yes, we're calling order.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order at 3:06. Okay. I just love this. I love this. I love it. I love it. Okay. We'll have to wait on you guys. You may listen in. Okay. Announcements, public.
Yeah, I think we do have a few people attending online. And you want to see if anyone has any public comment there?
Yes.
Okay. If anyone who's attending the Zoom call would like to make public comment, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. Again, if you'd like to make public comment, you can use the Zoom raise hand function. Doesn't look like we have any public comments.
No public comments or announcements. Okay, moving right along, let's go to the continuing education.
Yes, so I'm happy to have with us today Barry Trott, the Adult Services Consultant for the Library of Virginia, who was at the board's meeting last year to talk about the results of a survey the State Library had been on. Is here today to talk about Virginia Rights. I'm just going to turn it over to Barry, and he's going to talk about this exciting new program. Looks like Barry's the only one in the Amherst County Library right now.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I was the only one in the Amherst County Library. One person came in and asked me a question, though. So
great. Well, Barry, thank you for taking the time today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, as always. So I'm here today just to talk real quickly about a new project that we implemented this fiscal year. It started in February, or launched in February, I should say. We were a couple of months doing all the prep work for it. And it is, we're calling it Virginia Rights. It's also known as the Indie Author Project. The larger project, national project that we're part of is the Indie Author Project. This is coming from a company called Biblio Board, which is affiliated with Lyrasis, which is a library vendor. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to go here to the Jefferson-Madison County website. So you should be looking at seeing the Jefferson-Madison County website now. So on the JMRL site, on the digital library section of the site, which you find under the Find menu at the top, Find Digital Library. If you scroll down to the bottom, because this is alphabetical, you'll find this Virginia Rights Indie Author Project link. This link will take you to a page on the Library of Virginia's website, which I'm going to go to now. So we'll say access the database. And you should be now seeing a page on the LVA website. Is everybody seeing the LVA website now?
Yes.
Great. So there are three parts to this project. This was a project that we implemented in order to provide access to an ebook, self-publishing ebook platform. I did some surveying of Virginia library directors back in the spring of last year to talk about this, and we got some very positive responses. That the feeling was that between local authors in their community, writing groups in the community that were supported by the library or held at the library, other folks interested in publishing, that this would be a valuable product to have. And we were able to find some money in our federal LSTA budget to fund this year. And it will be part of our ongoing budget then. And there are three pieces to this Indie Author Project. There's a create tool, a platform called Pressbooks Public, which allows people to create their own ebooks. So if somebody has a great idea for a book and they want to, they're starting from scratch and want to create their own ebook, They can use Pressbooks to do that. When they do that, it's going to, once they log in, create an account and log in, you can see it takes them to a page here. You should be seeing a page that says create a book or an adapt a book. But they would click the create a book section to get started, and it's just going to walk them through getting set, what the title of the book is. They go to create a book. They'll be asked, they can actually use it to type their book directly in, or they can upload pages. If they've already put something into a Word document, a PDF, they can upload that content. It will help them with creating cover art and so forth. And they'll basically have a ready-to-go ebook once they're through that project. It does not have to be shared here. They can actually use that to do anything they want with that ebook. So they can upload it to Amazon, to other ebook platforms that might be hosting independent authors. But we hope that they will then upload the book through this share tool in the middle here to the Virginia Indie Author Project. When they do that, they're going to be taken to this page here. And there's some project details and a submit button, submission guidelines. The guidelines talk about things like this needs to be your own work. It should not be created by AI, that sort of thing. Tells about the review process, because the folks at BiblioBoard will review the book to make sure it doesn't have any inappropriate content, that it's not created by AI, that there's no plagiarism involved, that sort of thing. Then once it's accepted, it will become part of the collection. And I'll show you that in a minute. But when they go to submit, they are prompted to basically enter their information. They choose their local public library from the list here. So I know what libraries folks are submitting from, and we have had one submission already from Jefferson Madison Regional from an author. And then they, again, are walked through a series of steps to upload their file, create some metadata, file details, agree to the terms and conditions. Again, there are the content is completely under their control. They can take the book out of the collection anytime. They can add the book to Amazon as well as having it here if they want to have it on Amazon to try and make some money off of it. But this is a way for someone who perhaps is just interested in, a local author interested in sharing a title. They can simply upload it to the library's collection. Once it goes through that review process, it will then be added to the Indie Author collection, and this is available both as a web page. So I'm looking at it on the web, but also there's an app that readers can use to discover books from local authors around the state. And so here you can see just some of the titles that have been uploaded. Sort of very standard book kind of carousels there. They can go under the menu if they log in, which I'm logged in right now. You can look at the different categories. So if somebody was really interested in books about cooking, we could see what cooking books have been uploaded. This does include some older titles as well, so that's sort of interesting. But people can browse. If they see a book they like, Betty Crocker's Cookbook for Books and Girls, they can simply click on the read button. There's no need to log in to read things, and there's no use of library card or anything like that. And you can see we just have the book here, and somebody can scroll through it and read it. They can make it larger, the pages larger or smaller. They can also take notes and so forth and browse through the book. You can look at it full screen if you want. So this is just a way for folks to access those books that are shared in this Indie Virginia collection. There is one interesting piece of this in that I'm going to go back to the menu. And if we go to modules here, there's this thing called Indie Author Project Select. The books that are submitted to the Indie Author Project, if they are accepted, are then reviewed by staff from Library Journal and library staff. And the best of the best are selected to be part of the Indie Author Project Select collection. So those are sort of the top of the list titles, and those can actually be monetized within the platform. So there is some opportunity if the title is selected to be part of the Indie Author Project Select collection to monetize that. And again, that can be reviewed. And here we have all those different categories. Someone could go to science fiction, and here are the top indie published science fiction books according to the folks at Library Journal and Lyrasis. And again, these are categories. We can drill down further into the collection, and here are the individual books. So that's really the way it works. This is an opportunity for libraries to help manage their local author collections, which sometimes can be a bit unwieldy in terms of shelf space and all. And folks who are local authors who want to publish ebooks can certainly put them into this collection for any library around the state. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now and just see, does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from any of the trustees in the room?
I actually did have one.
We'll come back. Ann or Mike?
How long has this been going on? Have we been involved in this?
Barry, we've had this for about 6 weeks or so. Can you hear us?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it launched right before Valentine's Day, maybe somewhere around there. February. I'm February 1st, more or less, is when I'm looking at it as the start date. So yeah, about 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So we've had about 17 submissions have come in so far from all across the state.
Okay, the question I had was your review. Your review process is basically to see if, to make sure that there's no inappropriate content, right?
That's the way they describe it. Yes.
Okay, it has nothing to do with like, oh, your syntax is really bad or anything like that.
It's not reviewing. No. Just like a print local author book, the library is probably not reviewing its grammar and syntax and things like that.
David, Barry had mentioned this as an opportunity for facilitate local collections, and we have local voices. Mm-hmm. Is local voices physical only?
Currently, it's physical only. Yeah.
So have we thought about, or do we have plans to?
This would be the platform that we will suggest to people making local voices submissions, and we will add, I'm sure, to our web content if you have materials that you're interested in adding to our local voices collection. Like, here's the avenue to do that electronically.
But when doing that, it's not going to be sort of branded within JMRL as the digital arm of local voices.
No, it will be part of
Virginia
project here. And Barry, one of my questions to follow up on that is, you can search by library, or is that just something that was back end for you?
I think right now that's back end. I will say that the folks at BiblioBoard have been very open to my requests for being more granular in terms of getting information at the local library level. So we are looking at getting individual MARC records broken down by library. So I should be able in the future, it's not available right now, but to get MARC records for the specific titles by, say, JMRL authors that you could then add to your catalog. You could then, if you wanted to, tag them in your catalog as part of your local author collection. So that's forthcoming.
Data, then we can add it into our catalog. Right now we have stub catalog records for the local voices collection, where basically our technical services team doesn't spend much time with the detailed in-depth cataloging they do for items that are added to the normal collection. They just kind of accept everything as long as somebody's in the area, and title, name, much less detailed information.
But we would be able to get an actual MARC record for the book in the BiblioBoard collection. Just send that to you. So I'm working on that with the BiblioBoard folks on how to get those for the individual libraries.
I see local author Meredith Cole has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before I share this on a thread with the Charlottesville Women Writers, can you, if you've already uploaded your book to Amazon, you don't have to then recreate it in this tool. This tool is just an added extra gift for the authors in case they haven't done that step.
Right. If you already have the EPUB version, you can just go straight to the share page. You don't need to go through the Pressbooks public page. Right.
Okay.
So if you've already got it, just go ahead and share it if you want to share it.
I assume that's what Jenny Gardner did. I recognize that name.
Oh, okay.
We've already had the writing group at the North Side Library met with Barry. Were you there for that? I know the trainer from Biblio Board actually met with the local writing group to talk
Oh,
about
good. Good. No, I wasn't there for that.
information. Yeah.
That's awesome. This seems like a really wonderful gift for the writing community in Virginia, and it's also nice for our library. And you were just saying, and I could think I was missing the point of it. Do these then books show up in the regular catalog, or someone has to completely go to that separate? Because doesn't
Right now, we're still working on how to get the MARC record, which is the catalog record. You know what they use for the catalog record at, say, a JMRL or any other library. I'm trying to work with the folks at Biblio Board to be able to easily download MARC records by library system rather than just getting one big MARC file, which is the way it is now, and then having to try and figure out who's go to whom. So they're doing some things on their back end that hopefully are going to make that easier for me. So that will be forthcoming, and that would then allow any library, that has a book that's been created. Say Fairfax County, 5 books have already been created up in Fairfax County, and they're the heaviest users so far. Henrico's second, and then there's a bunch of single uploads. But that would allow them to add the record to their individual library catalog. But for right now, folks would have to go to the Indy Virginia collection to see the books.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for promoting it.
Barry, what about the cover art that you showed us? Where is that coming from? Are people providing their own cover art?
Yeah, if they're using Pressbooks, they can work with Pressbooks to create the cover art. I imagine some people are probably having, colleagues, friends, do that work or paying somebody to do it. Probably some people are, using AI to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And so you're going to see a range of cover art, just like you would see actually, even in, books that are being published by standard publishers, you see a range of quality of cover art. So you're definitely going to see a range of cover art quality here.
And one last question for me. The one example that you showed did not look like a local author.
It was not. There is a historical collection. Because I shouldn't have selected cookbooks to demonstrate that, because they're actually mostly historical. They just have a collection of historical titles they threw in for free as part of the package. So let me here. I can share my screen again and find a more.
That's fine. My question was just so that's being vetted to make sure that those are out of copyright.
Yes, exactly. Those are all. This collection here is more what you'd see. So these are all current books. Good question. Yeah, I didn't actually realize that historical collection was thrown in for free until I started browsing around a little bit and saw all these titles that I was trying to figure out how they got in there.
Any other questions?
That was my question. When he showed the cookbook for boys and girls, I figured it had to have been right.
Yeah, that's an out of copyright book that they just added as a bonus collection.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Barry. Thanks for taking the time this afternoon.
Absolutely. And, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. David knows how to obviously get a hold of me. I will say there are a couple of libraries that are already, that have asked me to come out and either speak or table at local author or book events. So if that's something that, you all do and would be interested in having David, just let me know and we can arrange to have somebody there as well.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. You all enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's very fine.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
I neglected one thing before the CE. I wanted to introduce and have EJ Dowling, a branch manager of the Green County Library, say hello and welcome you all.
Welcome to Green. Thanks for coming up here. very adventurous travels, I hear. So thank you for being here, and I'll give a tour after if anyone is interested of the branch. I think you all have got my tour last year, so not much has changed, but you're welcome to. But thank you so much for coming, and hi everybody online. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our technology report, can we?
Yeah, it's informational. There's no vote.
Oh, but he's not here.
No, he's here.
But he-
Peter, he can talk.
I can do a quick update on the technology committee meeting. So just as kind of the review, we started with a project update by Jeremy, the new technology and collections manager. Then David presented the draft timeline for website enhancements planning. And we had some discussion around that. And David's going to make revisions based on feedback. The technology committee is going to meet again in late April or early May to review the revision. David will make any additional necessary changes so that he can present kind of our recommendations there to the board in May. There was one update that the new technology position that had been in the proposed budget was not approved. And David can probably fill in a little bit more on that, but we had a little bit of a conversation around whether or not there was some way to alleviate a little bit of the pressure and the risk that's due to just not having a lot of folks who are able to fix technology problems as they arise. There's a lot of pressure on Sarah Elizabeth, who's kind of on call 24/7 to if something goes wrong. And then finally, David had added to the agenda a discussion around artificial intelligence or AI. And the staff for a while now has had an existing working group. But David kind of feels that at this point it's becoming clear that JMRL needs to develop either a procedure or policy or both around AI, and then definitely plan and conduct some training for responsible use and sharing of AI. And the staff currently have access to Gemini through Google Workspace, but there's some limits to that. And so then we just had a pretty good discussion of AI and kind of categorized its use at the moment into, by the staff as kind of research, kind of writing, ideation, right? So using it to kind of brainstorm. And then we talked a little bit about, at least kind of exploring the extent to which AI is able to actually change the nature of work in certain roles or positions. And so, it seems like there's a lot more to, discuss going forward on that topic. So that was kind of my update, and we just need to schedule that next meeting for late April or early May.
Thank you. Fiscal year 27 budget update.
Okay. So at this point, all county and city executives' recommended budgets are into their elected officials throughout the 5 jurisdictions of the region. The officials are debating them and going through that process. So they're in the phase of becoming proposed budgets. Full funding for JMRL is recommended region-wide, except in Charlottesville and Albemarle, both of which have specifically carved out the 2 new part-time positions the board requested. So there's the new 20-hour web content specialist position that Peter just alluded to. That's a regional cost. And then there's a new 20-hour branch specialist position at the Northside Library, which is a Charlottesville and Albemarle shared cost. That's about 80% Albemarle cost, 20% Charlottesville. Neither jurisdiction is proposing a funding level that includes those 2 new part-time positions. The rest of JMRL's request is proposed for full funding in both localities. So for context, I've been talking with Albemarle County staff and elected officials about this. They've reduced their total workforce by 3 full-time employees from 2025 to 2027 in the past few years. So this is not a decision about value for JMRL. This is just an across the board. They were not adding new positions. The reasons for that, largely they had to take on financial responsibility for positions in public safety that had been federally funded, that they were no longer federally funded, so they had to ramp up to accept those new full-time positions. And in order to do that, they decreased positions in local government, a net drop of 3 full-time employees. The total amount for JMRL fiscal year 27 proposed by Charlottesville is an increase of $208,284 over the current year. So that's 8.51% increase. It's $14,563 less than we requested. Total amount for JMRL proposed by Albemarle is an increase of $473,789, which is an 8% increase as well. That is about $45,000 less than what was requested. So this is still not finalized in any 5 jurisdictions. All boards and councils are in the midst of advertising their tax rates, setting up public hearing, going through that whole process. I'd say this board knows that the actual need for new personnel at JMRL are greater than those 2 part-time requests that got made. That made it into your proposed budget. The Personnel and Budget Committees both reviewed 10+ requests from across the regional library system for more support, and it was difficult to pare down to just those 2. So the need is there. The funding has not been. Having said that, the proposed budget from all 5 jurisdictions represents a significant commitment from our partners to supporting the board's budget, the library board's budget priorities, which were, number 1, secure funding to continue positive progression on JMRL's pay scale. So all these proposed budgets support a 5% increase to the pay scale, with current employees receiving that and a 2% raise. The second priority was secure funding from Albemarle and Charlottesville for the architecture and engineering phase of the Central Library renovation project. This is still on track, and it's included in both localities' proposed budgets. Third board priority was to secure funding for fiscal year 27 equipment needs. This is a JMRL responsibility. The plan is still to follow what Jerry and I proposed last fall, which was for year 1, starting next year. 50% of the equipment fund would be funded by JMRL's fund balance, 25% from the Friends Endowment, and 25% from state aid. In year 2, that would shift to a third. So a third from the fund balance, a third from the Friends Endowment, a third from state aid. In year 3, that would become 50% endowment, 50% state aid. The fourth board budget priority was to secure funding to maintain current levels of library service in the region, and the proposed funding levels will allow for that. So with the competing priorities that Charlottesville and Albemarle are facing, I don't believe that added advocacy is going to lead to the addition of those 2 positions for this upcoming fiscal year. That's my opinion, but it's a well-informed opinion. I don't think that this board pushing for that is going to make it happen. So my recommendation is that I'll explore alternate methods and workflows to meet needs for fiscal year 27, as Peter mentioned, the technology committee talked about, and revisit these 2 requests for fiscal year 28 budgeting. If that was the case, then JMRL will reduce the library's fiscal year 27 request to Green, Louisa, and Nelson, because one of those positions was a shared regional position. That would mean a reduction to the request for Greene County of $2,116. A reduction to Louisa County of $2,031, and a reduction to the request from Nelson County from $1,512. So it was a lot of numbers and information there to try to share, but the bottom line is that Charlottesville and Albemarle are fully funding JMRL's request minus those 2 part-time positions. My recommendation is that we move forward with that as our proposed budget for next year. Of course, things could happen between now and when this board needs to adopt their budget in June. You know, a pandemic could happen and things could change, but that's what it looks like the tea leaves are going right now. There can be no action or vote today because we don't have a quorum. I'm interested if any board members have any feedback on that. I would start to communicate with Green, Louisa, and Nelson to tell them that there'll be a change, removing a small amount of funding from the request for each of them. I don't think anyone will complain too much.
Yeah, I agree that trying to lobby for those 2 positions would not be a prudent thing to do at this point, considering the stress that those localities are funding this year.
All 5 jurisdictions are having a much more difficult budget season than they have for the past few years. Kathy, speaking of, here's Greene County's administrator, Kathy Schaefer. Board was just talking about reducing a request to Greene County potentially by a small amount of money, about $2,000. $2,116. Any other thoughts, suggestions? Anybody online, any thoughts or suggestions? Okay. Well, I'm going to continue to engage then with all of our jurisdictional partners moving forward with that program. And then the only other budget update I have to mention is that we will be calling the board's budget and finance committee together sometime within the next month or two to start discussing a fiscal year 27 equipment budget, which we just kind of went through the changes that that's going to see next year. That's all I have to report.
Okay. And so the second reading of the potential vote.
So
Second reading, actually.
yeah, so I would suggest that we table, since we won't be voting today, I would suggest we table the second reading. However, if anyone has had, we did a first reading last month. If anyone has, if that has come up with anybody's come up with questions about it that we can talk about today, the floor is open for questions. Otherwise, we'll go through it in more detail next month. Rapidly on the policy committee anyways. So going through it in a lot of detail. All right, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, well. Yes. Well, there's no potential.
This one's going to be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Because we are booking meeting rooms throughout JMRL. We booked them 3 months in advance. So starting on April 1st, we will be getting requests for July. So without the board being able to vote today on a schedule of closings, likely we will block out Saturday, July 4th. This is my proposal anyway. And assume that day is not going to be a day open for service. The board can't officially adopt a schedule today. We can still talk it through though, Alita, if you want.
Okay, you're suggesting that that's blocked off, that July 4th.
What we'll do is not accept any meeting room reservations for that day. We'll block it off in our calendars, and then if the board votes next month to change that day, then I don't really see a scenario in which the board says let's be open on the 4th of July.
Oh, I think they come.
So
I have one question about
please.
vote to ask.
Yeah.
Is why, I'm just curious, why New Year's Day is not a paid holiday, but Veterans Day is a paid holiday?
Veterans Day is used to be the day that we held the all-staff training day. And then we got requests from staff to have that day off in order to celebrate and honor Veterans Day. And so the board at that time swapped what had been Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day was a closed day, made that the training day, and Veterans Day a paid holiday. I don't know why. To me, that's not a parallel with New Year's Day. I don't know why New Year's Day has not been a paid holiday. It's just, I think, who was on the board when we went through the big review of how many days we were closed compared to all 5 of our jurisdictional partners, compared to other library systems. And I think the number that was reached at that time was 13, and the board was happy with that at that time.
And David, there was also the incentive to grant more time off when we weren't giving raises. So, I mean, that sort of, it stuck. Some of those dates stuck after we did that.
2 days were added in 2010 or 11. One of those Veterans Day, and one might have been maybe President's Day. I can't remember, but 2 days were added in lieu of, Krista knows, what is it?
I believe the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Friday after Thanksgiving was added too. So in both
So
draft
it's just
A,
a little random. What's a
what's a
paid
paid
day
holiday
versus a traditional national holiday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think New Year's Eve day is a banking holiday or a federal
No,
holiday.
but New Year's Day
The
is.
New Year's Day, we are closed on New Year's Day.
Yeah, but it's not a paid holiday.
It is.
No, New Year's Day is.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's missing a P. That is a paid holiday.
Oh.
I'm
And,
sorry.
and Memorial Day.
Memorial Day as well. I think this has something to do with the Adobe stripping
Oh.
stripping things out. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. All of these in this calendar here are paid days except
okay.
for all staff training day and Easter. Those are the only two that aren't paid holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that is very
Is
confusing.
a paid work day.
It's a paid work day because it's not, the library's closed, it's a closed day, but staff aren't getting a holiday. Is that better on this one? No, it's the
No.
same on both.
Okay.
And it's missing dates here too.
Mhm.
This is terrible.
Juneteenth.
The proposed schedule of closings is the same on both draft A and draft B. So my apologies, that should be paid days the whole way through except for Easter and all staff training day, as Mike pointed out, is a paid day for staff, but it's not a closed holiday. Staff are working. They're just training. The question that we discussed last month was what to do with all the Saturday closures. And I did take that back to JMRL's management team. We discussed quite a bit and couldn't come up with a better procedure than what we've done in the past, which is to close on that Saturday and then provide the staff that aren't working that day with a paid comp day in the future. And that would impact, you can see the 4th of July is the first one, the day after Christmas, and then Juneteenth next year.
I mean, my feeling is what the staff, what they want should prevail here. I mean, that's basically what they want, what the staff would like, right?
I don't know that we can speak for 125 members of staff.
Yeah.
That was the management team,
Okay.
and they're the ones who have to deal with the scheduling of the folks that are off during that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you were to ask staff like what they would want for the 4th of July, they would say the 4th of July and the observed day, like, and all our jurisdictional partners, they're not open on Saturday, so they'll have an observed day off on either Friday or Monday. The one thing that I am proposing for the board to think about and vote on next month is the day before Thanksgiving, and that's all included in the bottom here. Traditionally, on Thanksgiving Eve and New Year's Eve, JMRL has closed at 5 o'clock, which is earlier. Like many branches are open until 9 on those days. Last year, 4 out of 5 of JMRL's jurisdictional partners closed at noon on Thanksgiving Eve, so on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I would propose that the library board considers that. The only thing is that does add a half paid day for staff, because we can do the close at 5 without anybody getting more vacation, more holiday time, but you can't do the closing at noon without giving everybody a half day, but that seems like a reasonable and easy thing to do. Demand for materials that week tends to be Monday, Tuesday before people travel. By Wednesday afternoon, most people are settled in for what their Thanksgiving plans are. Is there any feedback on that? It would increase the total paid holidays up to 13.5 from 13.
I think that's reasonable.
I do too.
So what we will do is add this to your agenda for next month for a vote. And in the meantime, I'll just communicate to JMRL staff that we should block out, people can't book the meeting rooms on July 4th, assuming what the board votes. We're probably not going to be open on July 4th.
this board self-evaluation. This is a closed meeting, right?
No, this is an open
This
meeting.
is open.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to pull that up to look at? How do you want to run them?
Yeah, we can, well, yeah, just pull it up.
Would you like me to go through the responses or just open it up for board conversation?
Well, on this one, there's, yeah, just go through.
Okay. So we got 8 out of 9 trustees responding here, and we'll just go through the questions. Does the board prepare to do its job by? And these were all yes for every answer. A few not enough infos for providing regular board development activities for all board members. And then touring all facilities at least once a year was a no, which is true. The current board schedule, it's every 2 years you get to every single library. There were a few comments there. Somebody saying, I'm comfortable with the frequency of our visits to libraries, even though they're not all visited at least once a year. Somebody mentioned that when they joined the board, they had a face-to-face with me where procedures for meetings, responsibilities were explained. They had the opportunity to ask questions, get pertinent materials. The director let us know he's willing to answer any subsequent questions that came up or find answers that he was unable to answer, which happens. Our board ensures good meetings by, and going through all the categories there. Everybody said yes for all 8 respondents felt that the board convenes and adjourns on times. The board president leads the meeting, stick to the agenda, have procedural items there. No comment on, well, let's see, I shouldn't say that. One comment. If a member indicates that he or she needs additional information, the decision is postponed and the subject is reached further. So the board is, I think, really good at that too, putting things on future agendas if there's not enough info. The next question was about individual board members. And everybody answered yes for all the questions there. They came prepared. They see themselves as part of a team effort. They advocate for the library. They know their responsibilities. And no comments there. The next question, does the board plan for the future of the library by annually reviewing and approving the mission statement? So this comes up every year, I think, that there's some discussion about this. And when we, in fact, brought this back to the state library, it was either last year or the year before, to say, do you really want us changing our mission every year? They said, no, but you should just look at it and make sure it still sticks. So we've got coming up a strategic planning committee meeting to review progress on the 5-year plan and the strategic implementation plan, which is on the board's agenda for an annual review next month. So I would suggest that maybe part of that can be just putting the mission statement up on the screen, making sure everybody remembers it, is familiar with it, and agrees that we're on the right track. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I will also point out that the mission statement is a policy which has a 10-year review schedule. I agree with the idea of annually sort of revisiting and reapproving, but there is a formal scheduled time when it will be opened up for real.
When is it?
It's probably coming up for, I bet it's less than 4 years.
Yeah, it hasn't been as long as we thought. I'll check on that. The next one was annually reviewing yearly objectives work plan. So again, somebody's not enough info there. It is on the board's annual schedule to review the 5-year plan. So in April, that should be part of the board's task every year. We'll be doing that. Annually reviewing progress towards the long range plan and modifying the law. I'm assuming that says long range plan. So similarly, the committee will get together to review. The plan itself can be reviewed by the board, and then there's the strategic implementation plan, which is a staff procedure which obviously considers all board input, but it's not something that the board is making line item changes to. You would go through me. You would say, hey, you know, we said we were going to do this, but now we're actually doing that. Let's have the language match the reality, or here's a new thing that we need to consider. Operating from opportunity rather than crisis to crisis. So mostly yes, with at least one respondent saying, I think there's a comment to that effect too.
I don't love that question because I think there's somewhere in between crises. I don't think we have crises all the time, but there's also just needs that we have to deal with that come up, which are not crises, but I think we're driven some of the time by, hey, we need to deal with this. It's what's coming up. It doesn't mean it's a crisis.
It just feels that way. The comment here from the respondee was the strategic plan is updated every 5 years. It's not clear to me that we review progress of the plan regularly. I think that could be an activity of the 5-year plan committee. So that's the way it's supposed to work, but clearly that's not being communicated well if somebody felt it's happening. Which of the major categories does the board show real strength? Annually reviewing progress and having board committees produce results, experience, knowledge of previous decisions, committee work and producing results. Board keeps its finger on the pulse of progress towards long-term goals, establishing committees to monitor and report back, operating from opportunity rather than crisis to crisis. Which of the major categories does the board need improvement? The rapid emergence of AI technologies represents a significant opportunity for organizations like ours, but the landscape's evolving at an extraordinary pace. The board should ensure the JMRL is positioned to operate from opportunity rather than react from behind. This means investing in staff development, staying current with how these technologies can enhance library services and operations, and building enough institutional understanding to make informed decisions. The recent state-level survey revealed widespread misunderstandings about AI among library professionals. We should make sure JMRL is ahead of that curve, not behind. Somebody else said that the board needs improvement on operating from opportunities rather than crisis to crisis. And somebody else said, I think the board plans well. I'm just going to kind of go through these and then the board has your. If there's any other questions or comments in the space provided below. Board members should think proactively about public perceptions and opinions of the library rather than passively observing as events unfold. This includes being attentive to the full range of ways patrons experience the library's identity, not only the collection, but newsletters, displays, programming, partnerships we enter into, the voices we amplify through our platforms. It's crucial that our library is seen as a resource for everyone, not as a platform for ideological advocacy. When a patron communicates strong discomfort with ideological symbolism featured by a library partner, that's a signal worth taking seriously at the board level. Our community members must be able to trust JMRL to live up to the ALA's guidance that it's not the responsibility of a library to promote one point of view over another. Even without a specific intent, a pattern of choices and associations can create the impression that the library endorses a particular ideological position that undermines our credibility with the public and standing with sources of public funding we depend on. And that is the written portion of your annual self-evaluation. So, Lita, however you'd like to proceed.
Well, I don't really have anything.
You can add that the mission statement was adopted in July of 2019, so it will be up for automatic review in July of 2029.
So generally, what do we do with this information in the past?
I think you absorb it and use it to help plan for the library. I don't recall in my tenure a time in which the board has come out of a discussion of the self-evaluation with any action items. That doesn't mean that that shouldn't happen, but in the past it has been a time for reflection. Having said that, I'm not sure that that's true. I do remember that the form got tweaked a few times. There's a discussion about the mission statement, which did mean we went back to the state library and asked about that as whether or not that's a requirement.
discussion about the visits to the different libraries.
That's true. I take it back. There has been some actionable items that have come out of these discussions.
Well, I think certainly AI has come up twice now today in two different contexts. And I think that is something that we really has a board and the library that has to come to terms with. I don't know whether it's a policy that you really think about, but I know in my profession, there's similar misinformation about it, anxiety about it, differences of opinion about it. And I suspect it's similar to the library. I don't know the context in which it's available in the library or trusted in the library. I really only know my profession, and it's complicated.
Yeah, I think so.
But that's not a reason to shy away from.
Right? In fact, the public is going to come asking those questions of library staff. So the technology committee talked about this a bit and didn't decide that we needed a policy at that time. Maybe there will be down the line. So staff are working on a procedure. Our AI working group is working on a procedure, which will go through our new staff procedures group as well. And I'll share that with the board. But the intention there is to define for staff what tools they can use, what information they can and cannot share with the AI, and specifically about patron confidentiality, and then guidelines for how to assist patrons in the use of this technology. And that's nothing new for library staff. Every time there's a shift in technology, people come to the public library to find out how to interact with those things. So whether that's cassettes to CDs, or this is a little bit different than that, but that's the example I'm using for staff, is that we have to be able to talk to our patrons about how to use it and explain to them what it is. So we're going to offer some guidelines for staff. And I think at this point, your point is correct. The answer can't be, well, I don't want to do that. I'm not interested, because it's a part of our world, and the library is a place where we're connecting people to information. And this is the biggest change in information since the internet happened.
Right.
We have to be prepared to help the public.
Yeah, using your examples of cassettes and things, those are tangible things. And the AI being a virtual thing, I think causes more concern.
Can patrons come into the library and say to staff, I'm really curious about Chat GPT. Can you?
Yeah.
Do they have?
We've had a series of programs for the public. So it's more like that we would say to them, well, you should come to this program, or either our own staff or an outside expert is talking about AI. But I think more of that is happening on a smaller scale informally, where somebody would ask a reference question, or they would sign up. Branches offer the tech tutorials, like you can come in and say, I want to know how to do X, Y, or Z. Like that's the type of thing somebody will come in and say, I want a tech tutorial on how to use these tools.
Right.
So our staff have to be prepared to answer that and to explain to them, like, here are the models, here's what's available, here are the costs, here's what it can and can't do, here are some safeguards for you.
I mean, does JMRL have certain platforms that it's using right now?
No, which is that's one of the things we want to define within this. As Peter mentioned, like we use Google Workspace as our primary work tool, and that has its own AI that comes with it. So we have levels of access to that, but we haven't set for staff like only use this or only use that. So I'm aware that staff are using different tools, like some might be using ChatGPT, some are using Claude, some are using Gemini. And what we want to do, and I'm not, people can use whichever tools they need to get the job done, but we want to make sure that the guardrails are there on like, what is work property and work time, and what belongs to the library, and then kind of what are the tools you're using to get there.
Is there any training in that for the staff?
We will have training. We don't right now.
And does the Library of Virginia, are they involved at all?
Not in the sense that they always are, which is an
Guidelines.
advisory capacity. They will collect policies as they come up across the state. And the last time we checked a few months ago, there were very few. But when I went back and checked after the technology committee, there are a lot. So we're not the only library system who's right now saying, oh, feel like we're a few months, years behind on this. We need to catch up. The one that we asked for and that we really like is our neighbors at Central Rappahannock. They have a very robust training program and procedure that will likely talk to them about modeling.
And that they're similar in size.
They're
They're
close to
regional,
comp, yeah.
yeah.
So just to reinforce part of the discussion, there's our role as providing information to our patrons, but there's also, and I think you kind of touched on this, there's an opportunity to use these tools to provide better library service, is to do and Peter also mentioned this in his report. So to me, that might mean that we'll buy some subscriptions to some of these tools, rather than staff just using their, and so forth, but identify what they are with, as you said, the guardrails of how they should and should not be used appropriately. But there's all sorts of things I can imagine that staff do that could be partially automated or AI assisted. Or not, if it's a bad idea, if there's some reasons why it's a bad idea. Yeah. But I think there is a lot of potential to help us do our job better and faster and more comprehensively. If you ran your slide of library closings through ChatGPT, it might notice, through Claude, it can notice the P's, and that's just, even as trivial as an example as that. However, it's really good at reading information and looking for patterns, and that would be a pattern. So that's also the type of opportunity that I think we should really be thinking about.
So
how does this interact with our partners, the different counties that we're part of?
I missed the first, what was the first part of the question?
How does it interact with it? If we adopt a particular AI tool, how will that interact with our partners? Do our partners have any AI rules and guidelines that we?
I'm sure they do, or they're working on them now. Generally, our systems aren't really talking for the most part. The only exception is the city of Charlottesville, that's the fiscal agent for JMRL. So we use some of their technological tools that we don't have control over. So there's a system called SAP, which runs all the payroll and the HR data and also our procurement data there. I'm sure over time they will integrate their own AI solutions there, and we'll have to use what they have instead of them using what we have, basically. But right now, like, I don't have the same email or calendaring system as Kathy, right? So if I want to set up a time to talk to her, I have to do it the old-fashioned way, email or call and say, hey, can we talk? As opposed to at JMRL, I can just look at somebody's calendar and know. That's just an example, but like, we have our own siloed information systems, basically.
Chuckling, the old way of sending email.
So Barry was here last year, and he mentioned a few times today the results of that survey that went out across to public libraries across the state, and there was real trepidation there. And that's something that we need to address, is that we have, we're in a human services industry. Our job is serving the people of our community. So there are some staff, I think, who are going to take more, they're going to need more time with this idea and more training with it in order to feel comfortable enough to help somebody else. So we have to build the scaffolding to make sure that we're not just saying, like, hey, here's the thing, everybody do it now, and then somebody's left behind there.
I think the comfort level can also come from just seeing it actually do something useful.
Yeah.
It's an abstract concept to a lot of people right now because they're not using it and actually getting useful results. That, hey, this didn't harm anybody, and it took me an hour to do something that would have taken 10 hours to do, and we're all better off for it. So I think that's part of it.
The trouble is, in some contexts, it's not useful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give the right.
Yeah.
And so that's my trepidation, is an actual live problem where it did give a mistaken.
Right.
impression.
So you're absolutely
we
right.
have to balance.
So, well, I would amend that to saying we need to provide positive examples and negative examples, so you know how to navigate those straits of Scylla and Charybdis or whatever. But agreed. And the technology is improving. I'd say it's the worst it's ever going to be right now. But every time, I think I'm familiar with some of these. There's some high-profile cases that along the lines of that you're talking about, but providers see that and hey, that's something we need to fix, and they're working on it from a technology level also.
But I can understand.
David, a couple of categories of work that I believe some public libraries are at least experimenting with now are automated cataloging using AI, and then also the sort of on the collection management site, having AI make suggestions of which materials may be in higher demand. And I feel like those are a couple of categories that would be interesting. I don't know if it would be something we could have a continuing education on at some point, or I guess I would just encourage you to figure out a way that the library can start learning about what is possible in those areas. And again, it may turn out that that the error rates are so high that it's not worth exploring yet. But I feel like those are a couple of big areas that it may be that staff could really get a big assist from AI in doing that work.
I was just going to make the suggestion that perhaps, and Peter made the sort of suggestion, we have it as a continuing trustee continuing ed or an agenda item under old new business to review the what we're using AI for, what we could be using AI for, and so forth and so on. And I only say that because I think we're straying away from the board self-evaluation here. I just like to stay on topic. My two
Well,
cents.
my plan had been to bring, even though it's a procedure, to bring the procedure to the board to talk about like, here's what we're going to be telling staff, and here's the training that's going to go along with it.
Yeah.
I don't have a timeline for that yet. It's a nascent project.
Yep. I like that.
Was there anything else on the self-evaluation that anybody?
Good talk.
But you know what? I'm really not an AI-er. I have no idea. Somebody said, I see those letters, AI. I say, okay, what is it? What do you do with it? I don't.
Well, that's what we all need to explore.
Only we had some homegrown talent here that could give the board CE on what is AI. We all volunteer at once.
Yeah, we'll talk. I'm happy to share anything I know.
Okay. David, your report.
Okay, just a reminder that the Friends of the Library's annual spring sale is starting. The full sale starts on Saturday, April 4th, so not this weekend, but next weekend. It runs through Sunday, April 12th, 10 a.m. to 7 every day, and then there's the members preview on Friday night, April 3rd, which is always a lot of fun. Poem in Your Pocket Day is coming up this year. JMRL is observing Poem in Your Pocket Day on April 23rd. And additionally, we'll be hosting some jazz music at the Central Library with the Bob Bonetta Trio on April 26th to help celebrate National Poetry Month. But on April 23rd, all 8 branches in the bookmobile, plus whoever we can get to join in, will be handing out rolled poems throughout the service area. So come into the library, you get your poem in your pocket for the day. Also, you might have seen a little bit of mention at JMRL about the Teen Poet Laureates. Right now, applications are open through April 1st. So JMRL is seeking 14 to 18-year-olds. This will be the 4th annual. It started in 2023. The Teen Poet Laureate's a teen ambassador that serves in a 1-year role to help celebrate and raise interest in poetry in our community. Some previous projects the Teen Poet Laureates have worked on have been working on Poem in Your Pocket Day, handing out poems, creating poetry corners with magnetic poetry boards in some library branches, publishing poems in JMRL's e-newsletter, planning and hosting an open mic poetry reading, participating on JMRL's wordplay team for the literacy volunteers, creating content for social media, co-hosting a poetry writing workshop, and judging the Poet Laureate contest for the next year. So a lot of poetry stuff happening in April. Just to give you a little same page wrap up. JMRL gave away over 900 copies of The House of Eve. Extra copies in the collection account for at least 100 extra circulation. So we're going to call that 1,000 copies read throughout the region in all formats. So there's regular print, large print, audiobook, ebook, and e-audiobook for the circulating. Also 3 book club kits there. The author event was last Friday. Thank you, Carol, for emceeing that at the Jefferson School. 85 people attended in person. Another 115 attended virtually. Over 100 patrons have attended JMRL book groups discussing the title to date. Nelson's group is meeting right now, and 3 more book groups are still happening this week and next at Gordon Ave, Scottsville, and Louisa. So there's still time if you haven't had a chance to participate and want to talk about the title, even though the author event's over, the book clubs are still meeting. And then finally, Tony asked me to give an update on the book purchasing that the board has briefly been informed about over the last year or so. If you recall, there was a major shakeup in the industry that supports public libraries when the number one vendor for over 100 years of books for libraries, Baker & Taylor, suddenly folded. And at that point, libraries throughout the country were in a bit of a scramble to find out how to get books to their patrons. So at that point, obviously, I had to change vendors. Baker & Taylor was the number one vendor JMRL had used in the past. Most of those shifted to Ingram, which was the second largest provider of library materials. Thankfully, JMRL had seen some of these tea leaves and began shifting a lot of ordering over the last few years, so before there was a total collapse there. So we weren't caught in kind of the mad scramble that other libraries were doing, trying to set up accounts, set up processing, start from scratch. We already had that. It was just a shift in the volume of ordering that needed to happen. Because of that, we had to shift some of our branch level input tools internally too. So it used to be that staff, branch managers and their designees had access to Baker & Taylor's tool to create like shopping carts of materials that they wanted specifically for their branch, and that disappeared with Baker & Taylor. So our 3 selectors, which are the adult selector and Meredith, the young adult selector and Heather, and the children's selector and Megan, have instead worked to sending out a monthly selection list to all branches where they go through the upcoming publication dates for a few months in the future, and they select titles that they want to make sure they have enough copies of for their branch. More work in-house, but so far it's been very popular, and it's given our staff a chance to pick hot materials that they know will do well at their branch in the future, basically. So pretty much we've settled into a normal flow now, Tony, placing orders and receiving them in a timely fashion. Now, JMRL was always placing orders in a timely fashion. There were some problems there in that transition when Baker & Taylor went under and Ingram took over the majority of supply for the entire country, where some things weren't coming in a timely fashion. So pre-pub materials we would order and say, it's coming out on April 1st. We'd like to get it a week in advance so we can catalog and process it and get it to the branch. So that day, same day you can buy it on Amazon, it's available at the library. There's been a serious slowdown there over the last year or so. But fulfillment has picked up pace. Meredith reports November was the slowest month in terms of fulfillment, and as of February, they're pretty much back to normal. We're receiving most pre-publication orders within a week publication date at this point. So the highest profile, newest books are getting to us closer to on time than they were in the fall. But certainly you might have heard from library patrons saying, how come I didn't get this new book that I've been waiting for? And a lot of it has been disruption in the supply chain there. But things are getting better, Tony. And hopefully we're seeing the other side of it. Okay.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. That's all I have to report on.
Okay. Any other matters that we need to discuss?
Remind everybody that we're at Nelson next month, sorry.
It is.
That date is.
It's late because there's one more Monday in March. 27th.
Yep. And the May meeting is 1 week earlier because of Memorial Day at Gordon Avenue.
We're a little bit discombobulated for the next 2 months. There's 5 weeks between now and the next board meeting, and then there's only 3 weeks between then and the following one. So.
But what's the date?
That's May 18th.
Yes, that's correct. May 8th.
And don't we have a policy committee meeting at Nelson next month?
Correct. We'll be at 1:45.
Are we on to future agenda items?
Future agenda items would be the second reading and about the volunteers, and then the potential vote for the schedule closing, library closings. Anything else?
We'll have a policy committee report from the meeting that day.
There will also be a 5-year committee report and update, and probably a chance for an agenda item for the board to discuss strategic plan. Potentially a tech committee update if that meeting happens before April 27th. Part of the 5-year plan committee report will include a discussion about statement 2, at least getting eyes on it.
Anything else?
I move that we adjourn. Oh, we don't have movements.
There's no movement.
No move.
I guess we can adjourn.
You just walk out, whether or not.
Thank you all participating online.
Yeah, bye.
Sorry you couldn't be with us today.